I was just chased to the attic in my grandfather's house to not embarrass the family when a black SUV slid into the driveway. My grandfather got out, carrying 2 suitcases himself, looked up at my small window, and said only 3 words. "We're leaving." 5 minutes later, I understood why people fear the rich. It is not for their money, but for the secrets they can buy. My family's secrets were just starting to leak. My name is Harper Whitlow. I am 32 years old, and my job is to calculate the precise cost of disaster. At Northlake Trust Holdings, I am a senior risk analyst, which means I spend my days staring into the abyss of financial markets, modeling the fallout from bad bets and broken promises. It is a world of clean lines, hard data, and emotionless projections. My life, however, is not. I returned to the family estate in Brackenridge, Maine, for a reason I could not model. My grandfather's 80th birthday, this was Harrington territory. My mother was a Harrington, which made Lionel Harrington my grandfather. My father was a Whitlow, a name that, in this house, was synonymous with, not quite, the sprawling stone manor, which loomed over the rocky coastline like a feudal lord, was a place I had avoided for years. It was a house built on secrets, and my primary skill, uncovering them, was not a welcome talent here. This time, my return was contingent on my silence and invisibility. "You will go upstairs, Harper, to the attic, and you will stay there until the guests have left the main reception." My Aunt Margot, my mother's sister and the current matriarch of the house, did not look at me as she said it. She was adjusting a floral arrangement in the cavernous foyer, her fingers pinching a rose stem as if it had personally offended her. "The attic?" I kept my voice flat, betraying nothing. "Do not be dramatic." She finally turned, her eyes sweeping over me with a familiar, cold assessment. I was a problem in her ledger. "We cannot have a repeat of the Northlake incident. The media you attracted, it was deeply embarrassing. People are talking. We need to present a united, stable front for your grandfather. Your presence complicates that." My incident was blowing the whistle on a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme at my previous firm. I had discovered a shell game so blatant, so arrogant, that I could not ignore it. I followed the rules, I reported it internally, and when they tried to bury it, and me, I went public. I lost my job, spent a year in litigation, and became a pariah in an industry that values discretion above all else. Northlake Trust had hired me precisely because of it. They wanted the analyst who would rather burn the house down than let a bad number slide. My family, however, saw it differently. I had not saved investors. I had made a scene. I had broken the cardinal rule of old money. You never, ever air the family's business, or any business, in public. So I am the family embarrassment. Got it. "You always were difficult, Harper." She dismissed me with a flick of her wrist. "The attic, now, before people start arriving." I did not fight. Arguing with Margot was like reasoning with a tidal wave. I turned from the polished marble and crystal chandeliers of the main house and walked toward the narrow, creaking staircase once used by servants. The attic was my designated prison. It smelled of cedar, old paper, and the faint, salty tang of the Atlantic seeping through the ancient roof. Dust motes danced in the single beam of light from a small, round window. Slanted ceilings were lined with forgotten furniture draped in white sheets. Ghosts of parties past. It was a tomb of memories. But there were 2 things in that attic that were not forgotten. Not by me. The first was a small, black safe built directly into the chimney's stone breastwork. It was old, with a mechanical dial lock, not an electronic pad. It had taunted me my entire childhood. The second was carved into the thick, dark wood of the main support beam, just above the safe. Letters, deep and deliberate, H, L, L, H. I ran my fingers over the carving, the wood smooth with age. As a child, I imagined it was a treasure map, a secret code. Later, I assumed it was just antique graffiti, perhaps 2 lovers from a century past, but standing there, banished and 32, The letters clicked into place with the chilling finality of a lock. H.L. Harper, L.L. Lionel. A chill that had nothing to do with the main draft snaked up my spine. This was not a map. It was a designation, a key, a link. But to what? I moved closer to the floor vents, an old habit from a childhood spent listening. The house was coming alive below me, the murmur of voices, the clink of glasses, and then, clearer than the rest, a different kind of murmur, low, urgent, and sharp. I knelt on the dusty floorboards, pressing my ear to the brass grate. The voices came from the library, directly below the west wing of the attic. The capacity assessment is clear. Margot, Dr. Waylon Pierce has signed off. It was a voice I recognized. Mr. Morrow, the younger, sleeker half of Kestrel and Morrow, the Harrington family law firm. They were lawyers, yet more than that, custodians of the family's narrative, pruning any branch that grew in the wrong direction. He is weaker than he looks, Margot's voice replied, tight with a strained patience. He is confused. He has been sentimental. The transfer of conservatorship is the only logical step. A new voice, older, drier, Mr. Kestrel. It protects the estate. It protects Lionel from himself and from influences. Influences. Me. They were talking about me, the whistleblower, the unstable element. They were painting a picture of my grandfather as a senile old man, and I had just handed them the brush by getting myself banished to the attic. They were using my media trouble as proof that the family was under attack, that Lionel was incapable of managing the threat. Then, Margot's phone rang. Her voice changed, dropping the pretense of familial concern and adopting the sharp tone of a CEO executing a hostile takeover. Ronan? What is it? No, we are not waiting. The board is set. The proxies are aligned. What do you mean? He will not sign. A long pause. I could practically hear her knuckles whitening as she gripped the phone. Ronan, I do not care what it takes. You tell him that package has to be signed tonight. It is tonight or never. Do you understand me? Never. Ronan Pike, the family fund manager, a man my grandfather had once trusted implicitly. I had met him once, a man with $1,000 suit and eyes that never quite met yours. He was pushing a deal. Margot was pushing a conservatorship. This was not a birthday party. It was a coup. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was trapped, a witness with no voice, locked in the one part of the house with no exits except the one I had used to enter. I scrambled back to the small window, peering down at the long, winding driveway. The first of the guest cars were arriving, gliding silently up the gravel path, but they were not what caught my eye. A single black SUV, stark against the gray twilight, was moving faster than the others. It did not park with the valets. It drove straight past the main entrance, pulling onto the cobblestone circle by the old carriage house. This was not a guest. The driver's door opened. My grandfather, Lionel Harrington, emerged. He looked tired, yes, but not weak, not confused. He stood tall, his shoulders set against the wind whipping off the ocean. He was not wearing the tuxedo Margot had laid out. He was in his traveling coat, a dark cashmere wool, and a gray scarf. He walked to the back of the SUV and opened it himself, ignoring the house staff who were now running toward him. He pulled out 2 old, leather suitcases, the kind with brass corners and real straps. Then, from his inside pocket, he retrieved a single, thick envelope, sealed not with glue but with a dark red wax. My breath fogged the cold glass. He slammed the trunk, took the suitcases in hand, and stood still for a long moment, simply looking at the house, his house, the one where his daughter was currently trying to declare him incompetent. And then, he moved. He looked past the foyer, past the library. His gaze traveled up the stone facade, up to the 3rd floor, up to the small, round window of the attic. He looked directly at me. I froze, certain I was invisible behind the grime and the shadows, but he did not look away. He saw me. His voice was not a shout, not with the wind, but it was clear, carrying the parade ground command that had built an empire. "Harper, get your coat. We're leaving now." Time stopped. Below me, I could hear the library door burst open. I heard Margot's sharp, inhaled breath. I did not think, I acted. I grabbed my own notebook, the one thing in this house that was mine, filled with my own calculations, my own truths. My coat was downstairs, but I did not need it. Adrenaline was a furnace. My eyes scanned the room, landing on a dusty, gilt-framed painting of a ship in a storm, and behind it, I ripped the painting from the wall. Hanging on the nail was a single, rusty iron key. It was ornate, heavy, and cold, the kind of key that did not open a door, but a chest or a safe. I snatched the key, shoved it into my pocket, and ran for the stairs. I took the servants' stairs 2 at a time, my boots echoing on the bare wood. I burst through the door into the main foyer, just as my grandfather walked in the front entrance, dragging the suitcases behind him. The house was silent. Every guest, every lawyer, every staff member was frozen. Margot stood in the library doorway, her face a mask of complete, utter shock, her polite fury replaced by a pale, raw rage. "Father," she hissed, stepping forward. "What is the meaning of this? And Harper, I told you to stay upstairs. You are not to interact with him." Lionel looked at her, his eyes as cold and gray as the Maine Sea. "You," Margot said, pointing a trembling finger at me, "are in violation of the restricted contact agreement." Kestrel and Morrow were flanking her now, a phalanx of dark suits. My grandfather looked at Margot. He looked at the lawyers. He looked at the sealed envelope in his hand. "Your restrictions," he said, his voice quiet but filling the entire cavernous space, "expired at 0000 hours today." He did not elaborate. He did not need to. The statement hung in the air, a legal countermeasure I did not understand, but which Margot clearly did. Her face went from white to ashen. He looked at me. "Harper?" It was the only thing he said. I walked past my aunt. I walked past the lawyers. I did not look at them. I kept my eyes on my grandfather. He nodded, once, and turned. He dropped the suitcases by the door and walked out, carrying only the sealed envelope. I followed him. The whispers erupted behind us, a storm of confused, angry, and fearful voices, but we were already through the door. The cold air hit me like a slap, clearing the dust and the deceit from my lungs. We got into the black SUV. He placed the sealed envelope on the dashboard. The 2 suitcases sat on the seat between us like silent chaperones. As we pulled away, I looked back at the house. Margot was standing in the doorway, her face unreadable. Then, from the gates, a flash, and another, paparazzi. The media trouble Margot was so desperate to avoid. My grandfather did not even flinch. He just drove, his eyes on the road. We drove in silence for 10 minutes. I clutched my notebook. The rusty key in my pocket felt impossibly heavy. My grandfather had just walked into his own birthday party, defied a legal order I did not know existed, and rescued the one person his entire family had labeled a pariah. He did not do it because he was sentimental. He did not do it because he was confused. He did it because he needed something. He needed me. And as I looked at the 2 suitcases and the wax-sealed envelope, I realized my job as a risk analyst was just beginning. The family estate was the new disaster, and I was just starting to calculate the cost. The hum of the engine was the only sound. The paparazzi flashes were just angry sparks in the rearview mirror, disappearing as we turned onto the old state highway. We drove for maybe 5 miles, the road unspooling in the dark. Before he spoke, his voice was quiet, but it seemed to soak up all the air in the car. "They believe they have won." He was not looking at me. He was staring straight ahead, his profile cut from granite in the dim dashboard light. He slowed the SUV, turning onto a dark, unpaved access road. He did not seem to be navigating. He seemed to be following a map he had memorized decades ago. "Before we go further," he said, "I need your full attention. Harper, your professional assessment. From this moment, you will assume every member of the family is hostile. Every single one. I looked at him. Even Uncle Theo? Theo, the nice one. The one who sent me sympathetic, non-committal texts while I was being crucified by the press. The one who always played the neutral peacemaker, smoothing things over, begging for calm, and achieving nothing. Especially Theo, Lionel said, his voice flat. Neutrality in a war is just cowardice with a good publicist. He will fold. He always folds. He reached into the glove compartment, his movements economical. He pulled out a thick, folded document and a small, thin object. This, he said, handing me the papers, is the Harrington Trust, the original charter, 1999. It was a copy, but a heavy, high-grade one, stapled in the corner by a law firm that no longer existed. And this? He placed a thin piece of metal in my palm. It was cold, brushed stainless steel, like a high-end credit card, but heavier, with no flecks. Etched into the surface in a stark, blocky font were 4 characters, HL47C. What is this? I asked, my voice sounding rusty to my own ears. The key, he said. The one they do not know exists. He paused, then turned to me, his eyes sharp. Now, tell me about Northlake. Exactly. The parts the newspapers got wrong. I want to know what you found, and how you found it. This was not a request. It was an intake interview, a deposition. I took a breath. This was a test. It was not complicated, I began, my voice settling into the familiar cadence of a professional briefing. It was just arrogant. The vice president of structured products was running a side fund. When his main fund took a 20% loss on a bad real estate bet, he did not report it. He used the side fund, a satellite fund, technically off-balance sheet, to buy the toxic assets from the main fund at their original, inflated value. It was a paper transaction. He was washing his own books. How did you find it? The satellite fund was small. It should not have had the capital for a purchase that large. It was a statistical anomaly. I ran the numbers. The capital infusion for the satellite fund came 3 days before the transfer. It was a single wire. I traced it. And the retaliation? I reported it to compliance. I followed the chain of command, just like I was supposed to. 2 days later, my internal access was flagged. My boss told me I was stressing everyone out and needed to look at the bigger picture. The next week, they offered me a severance package, a big one, with a non-disclosure agreement thick as a phone book. And you refused. I do not get paid to be silent, I said, the words coming out harder than I intended. My name was on the quarterly risk audits. If I signed off on those books, I was complicit. I went to the SEC. And they hung you out to dry, he concluded. They smeared me, leaked to the press that I was a disgruntled employee, unstable, trying to extort the company. My reputation took a hit, but the math was sound. The vice president is now under federal investigation. I was right. Lionel was silent for a long time, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. They used your playbook, Harper, because you were the one who wrote it. I stared at him. What? The Northlake incident, the media, the unstable label. Margot and Ronan did not just use it, they encouraged it. He turned to look at me, the SUV's dashboard lights carving canyons into his face. They needed you discredited. They needed you isolated. Because of me. I do not understand. Ronan Pike has been running a satellite fund of his own, siphoning from the estate, but he needed a clean name to legalize the flow. A name connected to the family, but not a Harrington. A name he could control or, if necessary, sacrifice. The coldness I felt in the attic returned, but this was different. This was ice, sharp and clear. What name? He opened a shell corporation in Delaware. Whitlow Maritime Holdings. He used your father's side of the family. He used your name, Harper. He co-opted the family problem to hide his own. My blood went still. My father's name. The name that Margot and the rest of the Harringtons treated like a second-tier brand. Ronan Pike had used it as a sewer. He had used my public fight for transparency as a smokescreen for his own theft. They had not banished me because I was an embarrassment. They had banished me because I was a threat. I knew how to read the signs. He did not drive to the city. He took another old state highway, pulling into a motel that had not seen a renovation since 1970. The Lakeside View Motel sign was missing 3 letters, and the neon vacancy sign flickered weakly against the fog rolling in from the water. "We stay here," he said. "No credit cards, no electronic keys. I paid cash." The room smelled like stale coffee, bleach, and damp wool. He placed the 2 old suitcases on the particle board table and clicked open the brass latches. I had expected clothes. They were not filled with clothes. The first one was heavy with old, leather-bound books. They were journals, filled with elegant, faded script. "The Diaries of Evelyn Harrington," he said, touching the spine of one. My great-grandmother, the woman who had, by all accounts, truly built the Harrington fortune while her husband took the credit. He opened the second suitcase. It was packed with thick, gray foam, cradling a dull beige piece of equipment that looked like a prop from a Cold War spy movie. "A microfilm reader?" I whispered. "And 6 reels," he said, pointing to the small metal canisters tucked into slots beside it. "Your generation thinks data is something that lives in a cloud. Real secrets are kept on paper, or film, something you can hold, something you can burn." He handed me the 1999 trust copy. "Read it," he said. I did. It was a standard, ironclad dynastic trust, designed to protect the assets from taxes and feckless descendants. But I was not reading the text. I was reading the margins. This is the skill he and I shared. Not just the numbers, but the intent behind them. In the margins of the section on beneficiary oversight, there were faint pencil notations, a series of numbers, not dates, coordinates, account numbers. "She was meticulous," I said, recognizing the handwriting from old letters I had found in the attic. "This is Evelyn's." "She knew Margot's mother," Lionel said grimly. "She knew the bloodline. She built defenses, traps." He took the motel's notepad and a pen. He wrote, his hands surprisingly steady. 1. Brackenridge Town Archive. 2. Clearwater County Treasury. 3. Seafarer Bank, Main Branch. "These are the 3 locks," he said. "They hold the components of a failsafe Evelyn put in place. Margot and Ronan are trying to dismantle the main trust. They have no idea the real power lies dormant, split between these 3 locations." He tapped the metal card he had given me. "HL 47C. They will be looking for a document, a password. They will not be looking for this. This card interfaces with the old systems at all 3 locations, but they only work in sequence, and they only work for you." Why me? Because Evelyn was a romantic, but she was also a pragmatist. She set the conditions. The fail-safe could only be activated by 2 signatories, acting in concert, in a time of dire threat. 1, the current head of the family. He tapped his own chest. The other, the first female descendant of his line, bearing her name, who was not a Harrington. My breath caught. Evelyn. Her middle initial was L. "Harper L. Whitlow," I said, my hand closing over the card. "H. L." "Lionel H. Harrington," he confirmed. "L. H." The attic carving. The H. L. L. H. It was not a map, I said, the realization dawning, cold and perfect. It was a contract, a symmetrical key, 2 parts that complete the circuit. "Evelyn carved it herself. The day you were born," he said. "She knew they would underestimate you. She counted on it." He looked at the clock on the wall. It was almost 10. "Margot's legal motion, the conservatorship, it gives her temporary control. She will move to make it permanent at the end of the week. That is our deadline. We must have all 3 pieces before the new week begins." "We are vulnerable here," I said, my analyst brain kicking in. "This place is a security nightmare. No firewalls, no reinforced doors, no chain of custody." "It is," he agreed, "which is why we will not be here long. but we need rules." He pointed to the flimsy door, which was secured by a cheap chain. "We sleep in shifts. I will take the first watch, and if we are ever separated, or if one of us returns, 3 knocks. Quick, distinct. That means safe. 2 knocks. 2 knocks means danger. You do not open the door, you run. 3 safe, 2 danger," I repeated, committing it to memory. Just as I said it, my phone, which I had placed on the nightstand, buzzed. It was not a call, it was a text, from an unknown, blocked number. The message was simple. 6 words. "Do not open box 47C, it already killed someone." I felt the blood drain from my face. 47C, the number on the card. I showed the screen to my grandfather. He read it, his expression unmoving. He looked at the microfilm reader. He looked at the diaries. He looked at the metal card in my hand. A slow, thin, reptilian smile spread across Lionel Harrington's face. It was the coldest, most terrifying thing I had ever seen. "Good," he said, his voice a low growl. "We are on the right track." We slept in 3-hour shifts. Or rather, I dozed while Lionel sat, rigid as a gargoyle, in the motel's single armchair, watching the door. When my shift came, I did not sleep. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, listening to the rain and the groan of the old building. By 4 a.m, the adrenaline had burned itself out, leaving a cold, clear certainty. The text message had not been a warning. It had been a threat. Someone knew the number. Someone was afraid. At 6:30, before the sun had a chance to burn through the thick coastal fog, we were back in the SUV. We drove in silence to Brackenridge. The Brackenridge Town Archive was not a modern municipal building. It was a wing of the original 19th century town hall, a place of dark wood, brass lamps, and the dense, sweet smell of slowly decaying paper. It was a library of ghosts. The front desk was manned by a woman who seemed as old as the building itself. Her nameplate read, Ms. Adler. She had a tight bun of gray hair, glasses on a silver chain, and the suspicious territorial gaze of someone who has protected the same set of facts for 50 years. "We are here to access a private family deposit," Lionel said, his voice polite but carrying an authority that made the air in the room feel heavier. "Ms. Adler looked at him over the top of her glasses. "Name." "Harrington, box 47C. The woman's posture changed. She went from indifferent civil servant to wary guardian. She did not move to a computer. She pulled a massive, leather-bound ledger from under the counter and opened it. She ran a bony finger down a column. 47C, she murmured, her voice a dry rustle. "That box has conditions." "We are aware of the conditions," Lionel said. She looked at me, her eyes lingering. "This box is under the original charter seals. It cannot be opened by proxy, and it cannot be opened by a single party. The charter requires 2 specific, verified signatures from the direct bloodline, present at the same time." "We are here," Lionel said, his patience wearing thin. She nodded slowly. "Very well, the sign-in book." She pushed the ledger toward us. Lionel signed first. Lionel H. Harrington. His signature was exactly as I remembered it from old company reports. A sharp, angular, impatient script. I took the pen. Harper L. Whitlow. Ms. Adler studied both signatures. Comparing them to a card she pulled from a locked drawer, she looked from the card to me, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of something, recognition, or perhaps just surprise. She stamped the ledger with a heavy mechanical "approved" and disappeared into the stacks. She returned not with a box, but with a key, which she used to unlock a heavy steel door I had assumed was a closet. "The vault. This way. No bags, no coats." The vault was cold. The air was dry and still. Ms. Adler pointed to a large, black, metal safe deposit box, differentiated from the others only by the stenciled 47C on its face. It had 2 keyholes. Ms. Adler inserted her master key into the left lock and turned it. The second lock is proprietary. We do not have the key for it, as per the charter. She expected us to be stopped. She expected us to fail. This was her final test. Lionel did not move. He looked at me. Harper. This was my part of the circuit. I reached into my pocket. My fingers closed around the two objects I had brought from the attic. First, I pulled out the thin steel card, HL47C. I slid it into a narrow, vertical slit just below the main lock, a slot I had not even noticed until that moment. There was a quiet, mechanical thunk as tumblers shifted deep inside the wall. Then, I pulled out the rusty iron key, the key from behind the painting, the key that had hung in the attic my entire life, waiting. I inserted it into the second, proprietary lock. It turned, not smoothly, but with the heavy, grinding resistance of old, deliberate engineering. The lock clicked. The heavy door popped open a fraction of an inch. Ms. Adler's eyes widened. She had just witnessed a ghost story come true. We require privacy, Lionel said. She gave a curt nod and left the vault, pulling the heavy door almost closed behind her, leaving us in the pool of light from a single buzzing fluorescent bulb. My grandfather pulled the box out. It was heavy. He set it on the narrow metal table. Inside, there were no jewels, no gold, just paper, meticulously organized, bound in faded red ribbon, and 2 canisters of microfilm. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from recognition. This was my language. I untied the first bundle. Unexecuted will, 2004, I said, my voice all business. It's a complete rewrite of the 99 Trust. It names me as sole executor and primary beneficiary of the liquid assets, bypassing Margot and my mother entirely. It is unexecuted, Lionel said. A loaded gun she never fired. Keep looking. The next document was thinner. It was a medical file. This is from Dr. Waylon Pierce, I said, recognizing the letterhead. It's an assessment of mental capacity for you. When is it dated? He asked, his voice sharp. 3 weeks ago, but it's been altered. My analyst's eye caught it instantly. The font on the final summary paragraph was different. A slightly lighter ink, a different serif. The original text, visible under a light I angled from my phone, was faint but clear. It had been overwritten. The original text says, "Subject remains in full command of his faculties." I read. The forged text, the one typed over it, says, "Subject shows significant signs of cognitive decline and paranoid ideation." The paranoid ideation was Margot's, Lionel said, his voice dripping with acid. That is the document she is using to file for the conservatorship. That is her proof. She needed a doctor's signature, I said, and Pierce wouldn't give it, so she faked it. I kept digging, and then I found it. It was not a will, not a medical file. It was a single page, on different paper stock. It was titled, simply, Side Letter. I read it, my heart pounding a hole in my chest. It was an addendum, a private agreement between Evelyn Harrington and the Trust's original board, back in 1999. It stipulated one thing, in language so precise it was beautiful. In the event of a significant, proven conflict of interest involving the family fund manager, Ronan Pike, and the assets of Northlake Trust Holdings. My God, I whispered. The standard line of succession is to be immediately suspended. I continued reading. And temporary. Full discretionary control of the Harrington Family Fund will pass to the designated successor, Harper L. Whitlow, pending a full audit. I looked at my grandfather. This is it. This is why. They knew about it, he said. Ronan must have found a reference to it. They could not destroy it, but they could neutralize you. If the designated successor is unstable, if she's a discredited extortionist, a media problem. Then the side letter is void, I finished, the cold calculation of their plans settling over me. They used my whistleblowing against me. They needed me to be a pariah to secure their own positions. They needed me out of the way so Ronan could continue to steal, and Margot could take control. I went through the rest of the box. The evidence piled up. Receipts for fund transfers. To Seafarer Bank, I noted. From a holding company. M. Harrington Holdings. Evelyn's name was Evelyn L. Harrington, Lionel said. This just says, Harrington, I said, holding the paper up. The ink is different. The signature is not hers. It's Margot's. She's been hiding her tracks by using a name close enough to Evelyn's to pass a cursory glance. Follow the money, he growled. I grabbed the microfilm. Reel number 2. I loaded it into the archive's viewing station, a clunky, ancient machine in the corner. The film strip glowed to life. It was not a will, it was a ledger. These are non-voting shares, I said, my mind racing. A massive block of them. In companies I have never heard of. This is not the main estate. This is a shadow portfolio. He is using them to lock up the assets, moving them outside the trust's control where he can siphon them off. And at the bottom of the pile, I found the last piece, a series of internal memos, from Kestrel and Morrow. My blood ran cold. It was a detailed plan, outlining a media strategy. It listed reporters to contact, buzzwords to use, erratic behavior, emotionally compromised, unstable, disgruntled. It was the exact blueprint of the smear campaign they had used against me during the Northlake incident. They had not just used my past, they had created its echo. They've been planning this for over a year, I said, my voice hollow. I did not waste time. I pulled out my phone. I began photographing every single page, every receipt, every memo, the altered medical file, the unexecuted will, the side letter. They will know we were here, Lionel said, watching the door. I am counting on it, I said. I worked quickly, my fingers flying. I plugged my phone into a small, black rectangle I pulled from my pocket. It looked like a standard portable power bank. It was not. It was a high-capacity encrypted hard drive. I initiated the transfer, my own custom triple encryption protocol wrapping the files. The data was now off my phone, and the drive was hidden in plain sight. I slipped the drive back into my pocket. That is when I heard it. A sound in the hallway, outside the vault. A heavy, deliberate footstep, then another. I looked at Lionel. I put my finger to my lips. A shadow passed under the crack in the heavy vault door. The footsteps stopped. Silence. And then, a knock. Not 3. 2, sharp, hard, and deliberate. 2 knocks means danger. You do not open the door, you run. My blood turned to ice. Without a word, I killed the light on my phone. I shut down the microfilm reader. The vault was plunged into near darkness, lit only by the emergency exit sign at the far end of the hall. The lure, I whispered. I had come prepared. In my other pocket, I had a second set of documents, the publicly available copies of the 1999 trust, and some old, irrelevant stock reports. I stuffed them into the box, on top of the real documents. I made it look messy, as if we had been interrupted. Lionel was already moving. He was not a frail old man. He was a predator. He pointed to a small, red handle on the vault's back wall, one I had not seen. Emergency pressure release. He grabbed the handle. I looked back at the door. The shadow was still there, waiting. Lionel pulled the handle. It was not an alarm. It was a door. A narrow, steel-plated fire exit, built into the wall, designed to bypass the main vault door in a fire. It opened onto a dark, narrow alleyway, slick with rain. We slipped out, the door hissing shut on its hydraulic arm. The rain hit us instantly, cold and sharp. We ran. We did not look back. As we reached the end of the alley, I glanced up. High on the corner of the town hall, almost hidden by a gargoyle, was an old, analog security camera. It was not a modern digital dome. It was an old weatherproof box with a glass lens. And in the center of that lens, a single, tiny red light was blinking. Someone had been watching us the entire time. We did not stop. We ran until the sound of the rain was louder than the sound of our own breathing, until the gray alleys of Brackenridge's old town spit us out onto a street that had not seen a tourist in 50 years. We abandoned the SUV in a public parking garage, the keys tucked under the floor mat. We walked 2 blocks and hailed a cab. The old-fashioned kind, paying cash for a ride to a diner 2 towns over. From there, we walked again, in the pre-dawn chill, to another motel. This one was called the Pine Rest. It was identical to the last one, right down to the smell of bleach and regret. We were offline. We were ghosts. "Theo," Lionel said, as he stood by the window, watching the empty parking lot. "You need to see Theo." "Theo is a coward," I said. I was sitting on the floor, my back against the vibrating mini-fridge, my laptop open. "Exactly," Lionel said. "He is the weak link in their chain. A coward is predictable. He acts out of fear. Right now, he fears Margot and Ronan. You must present him with a greater fear." "I found the contact. I sent the text. I need to see you. Now." His reply was almost instantaneous. "Where?" "Not the house. They are watching the house. The Red Rooster Diner. Route 1. 1 hour. I am 30 minutes away," he texted back. He was already running. The Red Rooster was a fluorescent oasis in the dark. It was 3 in the morning, a place for long-haul truckers and people with nowhere else to be. I slid into a corner booth. The vinyl cracked and cold. I ordered a black coffee I had no intention of drinking. Uncle Theo tumbled in, looking like a man who had been pulled from a shipwreck. His coat was on inside out, and his hair was standing on end. He slid into the booth, his eyes darting around the empty diner. "Harper, my God," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "What have you done? You can't just take him. You can't just disappear. Margot she is apocalyptic." "Good," I said, my voice flat. "I'm glad she's worried." "Worried? She's not worried." He leaned in, his fear a palpable smell, like sour milk. "She's furious. She's moving. She's filing for a permanent conservatorship, not temporary. Harper, permanent. She wants to lock him away, put him in a facility, and take control of everything. She wants to erase him. And you're helping her." It was not an accusation. It was a statement of fact. Theo flinched, as if I had struck him. You don't understand. The pressure, Ronan." "I understand the document I saw in the archive," I said, my voice low and cold. "The capacity assessment, the forgery, the one with your signature on it." All the color drained from his face. He looked like he was going to be sick, right there on the Formica table. He fumbled in his coat pocket, his hand trembling so badly he could barely get it inside. "I never wanted this. I swear. Harper, I never wanted any of it." He did not pull out a document. He pulled out a photograph, old and soft-edged. He slid it across the table. It was me. I was small, maybe 5 or 6 years old. My face set in a serious, unsmiling expression. My hand was in the small, wrinkled hand of my great-grandmother, Evelyn. We were standing in the formal gardens, next to a heavy, dark wood chest, almost like a coffin. It was carved with intricate, twisting flowers I did not recognize, spider lilies. "She adored you," Theo said, his voice thick. "She said you had good iron in your spine, said you were the only one who didn't, who wasn't." He trailed off. "The only one who wasn't what, Theo?" "The only one who might survive the rest of us." I stared at the picture, Evelyn, the trunk, the flowers. "So you signed it," I said, pushing the photo back toward him. "You signed Ronan's forged document. You helped them try to bury the man who is counting on you, and you betrayed the woman in this picture." He finally met my eyes, and the shame in them was raw. "Yes," he whispered. "Ronan drafted it. He said it was just a formality, to help manage the accounts while Lionel was unwell. He said your grandfather was getting paranoid, that he was talking about you, about changing the will. He said it was to protect the estate from your influence. To protect the estate, or to protect Ronan's theft? I was forced. Harper, he hissed, his fear finally finding an outlet in anger. Ronan made it clear. My shares, my entire portfolio, it is all leveraged against the family fund. If I am not cooperative, Ronan pulls the plug. I lose everything. My house, my kids' tuition, it is all gone. So you sold my grandfather's freedom to save your portfolio. The anger evaporated, leaving nothing but a hollowed-out man. Yes. Then you are going to fix it. My voice was steel. You are going to go to the board. You are going to file an affidavit. You will state that you were coerced into signing a fraudulent document under financial duress. You are going to tell them what you just told me. He was shaking his head, a frantic, pathetic motion. No, I cannot. You don't understand. Ronan is just the mechanic. Margot is the architect. She will destroy me. She'll ruin me in a way Ronan cannot even imagine. She is already destroying you. Theo, I stood up, leaving the coffee untouched. She's already destroyed the family. You just have to decide which side you're on when the house finally burns down. You have my number. You have until morning to decide if you're a victim or a co-conspirator. I walked out and left him there, a ghost in a fluorescent tomb, staring at the photograph of me and Evelyn. I got back to the Pine Rest just as the sky was turning a sick, bruised purple. Lionel was sitting at the small, particle board table, one of Evelyn's leather-bound diaries open in front of him. He did not ask. He just looked up. He's terrified, I said, dropping the keys on the dresser. He admitted to signing the forged assessment. Ronan has his shares in a vice. So he is useless to us, Lionel said, closing the book with a soft thump. For now, I said, he'll be more useful when he realizes we're going to win. My phone, lying on the nightstand, buzzed. A text from another blocked number. My stomach tightened. It was not a warning this time. It was a directive. Ask Dr. Pierce about the assessment at 3:17 p.m. I stared at the screen. 3:17 p.m. say. Lionel's head snapped up. What did you say? The text. It says to ask Dr. Pierce about an assessment. Tuesday, at 3:17. He pointed to the open diary in front of him. Evelyn's, he said. I crossed the room. I looked at the page. It was her daily planner from 3 weeks ago. The handwriting was frail but sharp, like barbed wire. Most of the entries were simple. Gardening, tea, read financials. But on Tuesday, the same day as the forged assessment, there was one entry, underlined twice, in red ink. E. calls Dr. P. 3:17 p.m. Evelyn, I whispered. Evelyn called Dr. Pierce, not Margot, not Lionel. She has been dead for 2 years. Harper, Lionel said, his voice flat. My blood ran cold. I looked at the entry, E, not Evelyn. E, I repeated, my mind racing. She signed her notes E, but I thought of the photograph, the garden. Grandfather, who is E? He did not answer. He just stared at the open book. It doesn't matter, I said, the analyst taking over. The timestamp was the key. It was a discrepancy. The forged document just said, Tuesday afternoon. This is specific. This is leverage. I grabbed my phone. I looked up the number for Dr. Waylon Pierce's private practice. It was just after 7 in the morning. I did not care. His answering service answered. I told them it was a medical emergency regarding Lionel Harrington, and that I would not hang up. A man finally picked up, his voice thick with sleep and irritation. This is Dr. Pierce. Dr. Pierce? I said, my voice cold and clear. This is Harper Whitlow, Lionel Harrington's granddaughter. The irritation vanished, replaced by a sudden, cold silence. I am not at liberty to discuss any patient. Ms. Whitlow, you know that. I am not asking you to discuss a patient. I am asking you about an appointment on your calendar from 3 weeks ago, Tuesday, at 3:17 in the afternoon. The silence that followed was so profound, so heavy. I thought the line had died. "Who is this?" he finally whispered, his voice terrified. "I am the person who knows that appointment is the key to the fraudulent capacity assessment you allegedly signed, the one that was forged." I cannot," he stammered. "All my records, they've been sealed. By court order, Kestrel and Morrow. They had them sealed first thing this morning. I am legally bound. I cannot speak to you. I have to go." The line clicked. He had hung up on me. "Sealed," I said to Lionel. "Margot's already cleaning up her loose ends. The lawyer sealed his records this morning. He's running scared." "Then he is a dead end," Lionel said. Standing up, he began to pace the small room, his energy filling the space. "You are fighting like a lawyer. Harper, you are fighting the document. The document is a lie. The lie is a distraction. Stop fighting the lie." "What am I supposed to fight?" "The money!" He slammed his fist on the table, making the cheap lamp jump. "Always the money. The lie is there to hide the money, the conservatorship, the unstable label. It is all noise, to cover the signal. The signal is the theft. Kestrel and Morrow can seal a doctor's records. They cannot seal a bank." He was right. I had been trying to disprove their case. I should have been building my own. I sat down at the small desk. I pulled out my laptop and the encrypted drive I had rescued from the archive. I plugged it in and accessed the high-resolution photos of the side letter. Contingent successor, Harper L. Whitlow. Seafarer Bank, I said. Harrington Holdings. I opened a secure browser. I went to the private client portal for Seafarer Bank. This was the institution that handled the oldest Harrington money, the accounts that predated modern finance. I did not try to log in. I opened a secure message channel to their institutional compliance department. I attached the high-resolution photo of the side letter. I attached a copy of my passport and my professional credentials as a risk analyst at Northlake. My message was simple. To the head of compliance, per the attached side letter from 1999, I am exercising my right as contingent successor to the Harrington Trust. I am invoking the conflict of interest clause regarding Ronan Pike. I require an immediate, full statement of assets and a complete transaction history for the past 24 months, for all accounts associated with the Harrington Trust, including any sub-accounts or holding companies, specifically M. Harrington Holdings. This is a time-sensitive matter of fiduciary malfeasance. You have 1 hour to comply. I hit send. They will never respond in an hour, Lionel said, looking over my shoulder. Their lawyers will spend a week on that. Their lawyers work for the bank, not for Margot, I said, my eyes on the screen. I did not accuse them of anything. I gave them a legal document and notified them of fiduciary malfeasance. Right now, their only legal duty is to protect the bank, and the only way to do that is to comply. If they ignore me, and I am right, they are liable. They will not risk it. We waited. The hour passed, then another. The silence in the room was deafening. Then, my laptop chimed. An incoming message on the secure portal. It was not from compliance. It was from the bank's president. Ms. Whitlow, your credentials and the side letter have been verified against our internal charter. We cannot, however, provide statements for the Harrington Trust as you request. That trust is merely a subsidiary account. All primary assets are held in the master trust, established by Evelyn L. Harrington in 1958. We are attaching the master charter and a summary of current holdings. We await your further instructions. My hand was shaking as I clicked the attachment. It was not a trust. It was a fortress. The assets. They were 10 times what I thought. The shadow portfolio I saw in the microfilm was just a rounding error. What is it? Lionel asked, his voice quiet. It's called the Honor Line Trust, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Evelyn set it up. It supersedes everything. The 1999 trust is just a checking account. This is the vault. I scanned the charter. My eyes landed on the beneficiary clause. My God. Harper, read it. Beneficiary number 1. Harper L. Whitlow, upon her 32nd birthday. My birthday was last month. Beneficiary number 2, I read. The name is redacted. It's just listed as the anchor. I looked up at my grandfather, my head spinning. Honor line? What is this? He came around the table and looked at the screen. He put his hand on my shoulder. His gaze was distant, as if he were looking back through time. The honor line, he said, his voice softer than I had ever heard it. It was Evelyn's name for it. She always said the family had a weakness, not for gambling, or women, or booze, but for weakness itself, for bending. She said you had to draw a line, an honor line, and hold it, no matter what. She said it was a promise to keep a straight back when money starts to bend people. I was beneficiary number 1. Evelyn had left it all. To me. Not the estate, the control. My phone buzzed. This time, I knew the sender. It was not a block number. It was Aunt Margot. I opened the text. It was not a threat. It was an execution order. Come home now. Harper, both of you. Stop this foolishness. If you are not back at the house by noon, we will be forced to act on Dr. Pierce's medical advice. We will take him. We will take him somewhere quiet. Somewhere with no cell service. Somewhere he can be safe. You have 2 hours. 2 hours, I said. The text glowed on my phone. A digital execution order. Margot's ultimatum. She is not bluffing. Neither are we, Lionel said. He was standing by the window of the motel room, a silhouette against the gray morning light. We are not walking back into her house. We are walking into my house. It was time to stop reacting. It was time to set the terms of engagement. I looked at the encrypted hard drive, now safely tucked into my boot. I looked at the Honor Line Trust Charter, still open on my laptop, a document holding more power than most small nations. They expect us to be afraid, I said, my voice quiet. They expect us to be broken. They are expecting the girl they sent to the attic. That girl is gone, he said. I spent the next 20 minutes preparing for war. I dressed in the clothes I had arrived in, a dark silk blouse, tailored trousers, the uniform of Harper Whitlow, risk analyst. I took the small, button-sized microphone from the surveillance kit Lionel had brought in one of the suitcases. I threaded the wire down the inside of my blouse, securing the digital recorder flat against my ribs. It was an old-world precaution against new-world treachery. A physical recording is a physical fact. We did not take a cab. We took a public bus back into Brackenridge and walked the last mile up the long gravel drive, the black SUV still abandoned in a garage 2 towns away. We arrived at the main doors at precisely 11:58, 2 minutes before Margot's deadline. We were not prisoners returning under guard. We were auditors arriving for an inspection. The house was deathly quiet. The caterers, the guests, the staff, all gone. They were waiting for us in the library, the same room where Margot had passed sentence on me less than 24 hours ago. She was sitting behind my grandfather's massive mahogany desk, a queen on a stolen throne. Ronan Pike stood to her right, his hands clasped, radiating a smug, predatory calm. Mr. Kestrel and Mr. Morrow, the lawyers, stood near the fireplace like undertakers. And sitting on a brocade sofa in the corner, looking pale and ill, was my Uncle Theo. Father, Harper, Margot's voice was a slick veneer of false relief. I am so glad you have returned. We were deeply worried. This instability, this erratic behavior, running off, it is exactly what Dr. Pierce warned us about. Ronan Pike stepped forward, placing a thick sheaf of papers on the desk blotter. We have the new conservatorship documents, he said, his voice offensively smooth. Given the events of the last day, the court has granted an emergency hearing. This just codifies the arrangement. It places me in charge of the family fund, and Margot in charge of your father's care. It is for the best. Lionel, it's time to rest. I looked at the document he pushed forward. It was pristine, fresh from a high-end laser printer, and then I saw it. In the bottom left corner, a faint, gray set of characters, a document timestamp, and a machine serial number. My blood did not run cold. It ran hot, with the clean, bright fire of certainty. I recognized it. It was the same machine identification code I had seen on the Kestrel and Morrow memos in the archive. The memos outlining their strategy to paint me as unstable. They had not just drafted this document, they had printed it, in their own office, this morning. This was my moment. This was the pivot. But first, I needed the weak link. I let my shoulders slump. I let the unstable mask they had so carefully crafted for me settle onto my face. I looked at the papers, and then at Margot, and I let my voice tremble. I don't understand, I stammered, playing the part of the confused, overwhelmed girl they needed me to be. A conservatorship? You're locking him up? It is for his own good. Harper, Margot said, her voice softening. Leaning into her victory, she mistook my silence for shock. He is unwell. But the company? The money? Ronan? I looked at Ronan, widening my eyes. You're in charge of everything? It is the most stable solution, Ronan said, his condescension palpable. I backed away, a slow, deliberate movement. Putting my back toward the corner where Theo was sitting, I clutched my head. I can't breathe. This is too much. You can't just steal everything. Sit down, Harper, Margot snapped, her patience gone. Do not be hysterical. Hysterical, I whispered. I leaned back against the wall, my shoulder brushing the bookcase just beside Theo's couch. Yes, that is what they called me at Northlake, wasn't it? My hands were behind my back, my phone in my left hand. My laptop was in my bag, its contents already synced. I had the files ready. Theo, look at me. He glanced up, his eyes wide and wet with fear. I activated the AirDrop on my phone. My screen lit up with his device name. Theo's iPhone. Accept the transfer, you coward. Accept it. I selected the package of files, the side letter, the high-resolution comparison of the forged medical report next to the original, the Kestrel and Morrow memos, the Seafarer bank charter. I hit send. Theo's phone buzzed in his pocket. He startled, looking at Margot like a child caught cheating. What is it, Theo? Margot asked, her eyes narrowing. Nothing, he said, his voice too high. Just a market alert. He fumbled for his phone, his hands shaking so violently he almost dropped it. His eyes saw the transfer request on his screen. Harper Whitlow wants to share 12 files. His thumb hovered over the screen. He looked at me. His face was a mask of pure terror. I held his gaze. I did not plead. I commanded. He pressed accept. The blue transfer bar zipped across the screen. 1 second, 2 seconds, done. I pushed myself off the wall. The performance was over. The data was delivered. Actually, I said, my voice clear and cold, I feel much better now. Margot stared at me, sensing the atmospheric shift. What is this, Harper? It's a meeting, I said. You called it an asset declaration, so let's declare the assets. I walked to the desk, but I did not look at Ronan's forged papers. You've demanded I sign a document of silence, an NDA about my grandfather's condition. I will not, but I do have a question. I looked directly at Ronan Pike. You're the fund manager. You should know. Tell me about the Honor Line Trust. The silence that followed was so absolute, so heavy. It felt like the air had been sucked from the room. Ronan Pike, for the first time, looked uncertain. He glanced at Kestrel. Kestrel glanced at Morrow. The what? Ronan said, attempting a confused scoff. The Honor Line Trust, I repeated, louder, enunciating every syllable. Chartered in 1958 by Evelyn L. Harrington, managed by Seafarer Bank. Shall I continue? Margot's face was white. What nonsense is this? Father, what has she been filling your head with? I don't think he knows, I said, gesturing to Lionel. I think Evelyn made sure he didn't, until he needed it. And I know you don't know, because you've been so busy robbing the checking account. You never thought to look for the vault. I pulled my laptop from my bag and set it on the polished mahogany. Turning the screen to face them, I clicked on the first file from the archive. Microfilm reel number 2, I said. This is a shadow ledger. Ronan, assets you've been moving into non-voting shares to siphon them off. A clever shell game. But this is nothing. I clicked to the next file. The Seafarer Charter. This is the Honor Line Trust, an asset pool that makes the entire Harrington estate, the one you're fighting over, look like a rounding error. And you, Ronan, are not listed as the fund manager. This is fabrication, Ronan spat, finding his voice. She's unstable. She is manufacturing documents. She's delusional. Am I asked. Or are you? Enough! Margot slammed her hand on the desk, the sound cracking like a gunshot. This is absurd, Kestrel. Call the facility. She is clearly a danger to herself and my father. Lionel stepped forward, his hand raised. He was holding the red, wax-sealed envelope. Before you make that call, Margot, he said, his voice a low rumble. You should see this. He broke the seal. He pulled out a single sheet of heavy vellum paper, Evelyn's handwriting. A letter, he said, from my mother, hand-delivered to her attorneys upon her death, to be given to me only on this day, my 80th birthday. He read, To my son, Lionel, I fear the bloodline, I fear weakness, I fear Margot's ambition. Therefore, I have enacted a final defense. This letter serves as my final, binding testament. If upon your 80th birthday, any attempt is made by your sister, Margot Harrington, or her agents, to seize control of your assets through fraudulent or manipulative means. He looked up, locking eyes with Margot. All her powers as a proxy, executor, or beneficiary of my primary will are immediately and irrevocably voided. Margot stared, her mouth open, speechless. This is inadmissible, Kestrel blurted out. She was not of sound mind. That was written years ago. Her mind was slipping. Was it? I asked. Margot seized on the lifeline. Yes, she was senile. Just like father. It's genetic. It's why you, she pointed at me, her fingers shaking with rage, need to be evaluated. You are fabricating stories about secret trusts. I am having you placed under medical guardianship. Harper, for your own good. You mean for your good, I said. You want to declare Evelyn senile to invalidate the honor line. You want to declare my grandfather senile to steal his estate. And you want to declare me senile because I am beneficiary number 1. I reached into my bag and pulled out a leather-bound book. Evelyn's diary. You're right. Mr. Kestrel, Evelyn's mind is the key. I opened the book to a dog-eared page. This is the original, unaltered capacity assessment for my grandfather, signed by Dr. Waylon Pierce, the one you didn't forge, Ronan, the one that says my grandfather is in full command of his faculties. Funny place for it, isn't it? Clipped inside Evelyn's personal diary. I turned the book, and on this page, an entry, Tuesday, video call with Dr. P, 3:17 p.m. You claim Evelyn was senile when she wrote her defense letters? I reached into my bag again. I pulled out my tablet. Then I suppose you'll claim this is a fabrication too. I hit play. Evelyn's face, old and wrinkled, but her eyes sharp as glass, filled the screen. It was a recording of a video call. The timestamp in the corner read, 3:17 p.m. The date was from 3 years ago, just before she died. This is Evelyn Harrington. Her voice, frail but clear, said on the recording, I am recording this with Dr. Pierce to affirm my mental state as I sign the final provisions for the Honor Line Trust. I am of sound mind and body, and I am doing this because I know my sister-in-law's daughter, Margot, is a thief. The air shattered. Margot let out a sound, half gasp, half scream. Ronan's composure broke. She's lying. At that precise moment, my phone buzzed, a file transfer. From Theo. I glanced at him. He met my gaze. He was pale, sweating, but he nodded. Once, he had sent it. He had sent the audio file. I looked back at the group. My voice was calm. "He's right," I said. "It's a lot of accusations, my word against yours, a psychological evaluation against a financial audit." I smiled. It was a cold, sharp thing. "So let's do both." Margot stared at me. "What?" "I'll do it," I said. "I'll agree to your public psychological evaluation. I will even agree to let Dr. Pierce, or any doctor you choose, administer it, but on one condition, we do it in parallel. While I am being evaluated for instability, Seafarer Bank will conduct a full, independent, forensic audit of every transaction you have made. Ronan, for the last 5 years, my evaluation, your audit. We release the results at the same time." It was the perfect trap. If they refused the audit, they admitted their guilt. If they agreed, they would be exposed. Lionel watched, a faint, proud smile on his lips, the art of the deal. Margot looked at Ronan. She was trapped. If she backed down now, she lost all leverage. If she agreed, she had to trust that Ronan had covered his tracks completely. "Fine," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. "Fine. You want an audit? You will get one. And when you are declared incompetent, I will take control of that honor line and everything else." She agreed. She had taken the bait. Ronan Pike did not look relieved. He looked calculating. He glanced past Margot, toward the hallway. Just outside the library door, he gave a short, sharp nod to someone I could not see. He had another card to play. He was not worried about the audit. And I realized, with a sudden, chilling certainty, why an audit takes weeks. A conservatorship hearing can take an hour. He just needed to get me out of the way. The truce was a lie. We all knew it. The agreement for a parallel audit and evaluation was not a ceasefire. It was a reloading break. We returned to the Harrington estate, but not as family. Lionel and I were guests, installed in a sterile, modern wing of the house, far from the library and, pointedly, far from the attic. Margot's message was clear. We were being watched. I did not sleep. I sat in the dark. My laptop's glow turned down to its lowest setting, tracking the house's internal security feed, which I had compromised years ago. I watched the digital ghosts of security guards, Ronan's men, not my grandfather's, patrolling the halls. They were jumpy. They were looking for something. At 2 a.m, I saw what I was waiting for. A shadow detached itself from the wall near the servants' staircase. It was Callan, Ronan's personal bulldog, the man I had seen him nod to in the library. He was not on his normal patrol. He was going up, to the attic. I was already moving. I exited my room, barefoot, a shadow moving against shadows. I knew the house's dead zones, the spots where the floorboards did not creak, the tapestries that hid the old service passages. I was in the attic, hidden behind a stack of my mother's forgotten trunks, a full minute before he even cleared the top stair. The attic was cold, the air still and heavy with dust. Callan moved with a professional, brutal efficiency. He was not a thief. He was a demolition man. He went straight to the chimney breast. He was not interested in the dusty furniture or the old paintings. He was interested in the safe. He had a drill, but he did not use it. He had a stethoscope, which he pressed against the cold steel of the dial. He was trying to crack it. He was looking for the key. He was looking for HL47C. I watched him. My breath held. My heart a slow, cold drum. He worked for 10 minutes, his frustration mounting. The quiet snick, snick, snick of the dial the only sound. He was brute force. This lock was a riddle. He would never open it. Finally, he swore, a low, vicious sound. He put his ear to the safe, tapped it, and then stood. He pulled out his phone. "It's not here," he whispered into the phone. "The safe is a bust. He must have it. Or it's with the box. Yes, I'm on my way now. I'll take it to the bay." He left. He did not run. He just moved. A block of granite disappearing down the stairs. I gave him 3 minutes, then I followed. He was not trying to be subtle. He was in a black Escalade, Ronan's personal car. I was in a gray and anonymous sedan I had rented from a 24-hour lot in Brackenridge the moment we hit the mainland. Paid for with a clean, untraceable credit card. I was a risk analyst. I did not believe in safe houses. I believed in go-bags and exit plans. I tailed him, keeping 3 cars back. My lights dimmed. He drove out of the estates, past the town, and headed for the industrial sprawl by the bay. This was where the lobster boats came in, a place that smelled of low tide, diesel, and old rope. He pulled up to a corrugated steel warehouse, its blue paint flaking off in salty sheets. Brackenridge Marine Storage, the sign read. It was a front, and a bad one. He punched a code into a keypad, and a huge metal door rolled up. He drove inside. I parked a block away and approached on foot, sticking to the deep shadows cast by stacks of lobster pots. The building was a sieve. I found a side door. Its lock rusted through. I slipped inside, the metal groaning softly. I was on a low catwalk, looking down. The warehouse was vast, cold, and lit by buzzing fluorescent strips. And in the center, I saw it, the black Escalade, Callan, and, sitting on a folding table under a pool of light, was Box 47C. My blood sang. The lawyers. Kestrel and Morrow must have used their legal standing to retrieve the box from the town archive the moment they heard we had been there. They had taken the bait. They had my fake, planted documents. But that was not all. My eyes adjusted to the gloom, and I saw the rest of the operation. Piled against the far wall were hundreds, maybe thousands, of white bankers' boxes. A stack of them near Callan had a label, stenciled in black. Northlake, Sideco. My case, my whistleblowing case, the shell company Ronan had used to launder the fraudulent assets. He had not just siphoned money, he had stolen the entire corporate husk and was now, clearly, trying to destroy the evidence. In the corner, plugged in and humming, was an industrial shredder the size of a small car. This was the nexus. This was the entire crime, laid out in a cold, damp warehouse. I pulled out my phone. I hit record. The high-definition lens drinking in the scene. I panned slowly. Callan, the Escalade, Box 47C, the mountains of Northlake files, the shredder. I opened my secure messaging app. I sent the live video feed directly to Theo. My thumb typed a message, my mind cold and clear. This is it. Theo, this is the whole thing. Ronan is destroying the Northlake evidence. I'm sending you the live feed. If you do not hear from me by 6 a.m., you send this to the SEC, the U.S. Attorney, and the Wall Street Journal. This is not about your shares anymore. This is about spending the rest of your life in a federal prison. Choose. I saw the delivered receipt. He was awake. He was watching. I had just made him my unwilling insurance policy. Then, I set a secondary protocol on my phone, a dead man's switch. If the phone was destroyed, if it was powered down improperly, if it did not receive my biometric check-in every 15 minutes, it would automatically upload its entire encrypted contents to a public-facing cloud server, with the decryption keys anonymously mailed to every major news outlet on the East Coast. I was not getting buried. Down below, Callan's phone rang. I zoomed in with the camera, the microphone picking up his side of the conversation. "Yeah," he growled. "I have the box, the archive box. No, the safe was empty, a waste of time. Understood. I'll bring the box to Clearwater. 7 a.m. The lawyers will be waiting." Clearwater, the second location on Lionel's list. They were taking my bait and running right into the next phase of the trap. Callan hung up. He looked at his watch. He clearly had time to kill. He walked over to the stack of Northlake boxes, picked one up, and carried it to the shredder. He fed the first thick file into the machine. The sound was deafening, a high-pitched, grinding roar that filled the entire warehouse, rattling the steel walls. It was the perfect cover. My eyes darted to the table. Next to Box 47C was a small, black, zippered case. As I watched, Callan had unzipped it earlier. Inside, nestled in foam, was a single, black USB drive. He was not taking the whole box to Clearwater. He was taking a digital copy of my bait documents to the lawyers. I had come prepared for this. I always come prepared. I reached into my boot, into a small pocket sewn inside the leather. I pulled out my own USB drive. It was physically identical, a standard, black, 3-inch Kingston drive, but mine was a trap. I moved, down the metal stairs, my feet silent. Callan was at the shredder, his back to me, the machine screaming as it devoured the evidence of Ronan's crimes. I did not run. I walked, my steps measured. The 10 yards to the table felt like a mile. I reached the table. My hand did not shake. His drive, my drive. I made the swap. I put his drive in my pocket. I left mine in the foam case. My drive was loaded with 2 things. The payload was a silent worm. The moment it was plugged into any networked computer, it would activate, burrow into the local network, and begin uploading every file it could find, legal briefs, client lists, internal emails, to my encrypted server, all while pinging its location. It was a digital wiretap. The content, the files the lawyers would see, was my own personal touch. It was not a virus. It was a collection of 300 high-resolution family photos of Aunt Margot from the 90s, vacations, parties, her unfortunate foray into shoulder pads. They would plug it in, expecting to see legal documents. They would see their boss in a ski suit, and by the time they figured it out, I would own their network. I turned. I walked away. Callan fed another file into the hungry machine. I was out the side door before the sound of the shredder even changed. I was back in my car, my heart hammering a hole in my chest. When my phone buzzed, it was not Theo. It was another blocked number, a new one. The message was not a threat, and it was not a clue. It was a warning. Do not let them touch honor line. Beneficiary number 2 will betray you. I stared at the screen, the green letters glowing in the dark car. Betray me? Who? Who was beneficiary number 2? The anchor. Who knew? I knew. Lionel knew. Seafarer Bank knew. And now, Theo knew. I had just sent him the charter. I had just given my terrified, weak-willed uncle the keys to the entire kingdom as my insurance plan. Was he the anchor? Was this his play? Was he going to betray me to Margot to save himself? Or was the message from him a warning? A colder, darker thought slid into my mind. Who else knew? Lionel, who was always one step ahead. Lionel, who refused to answer my questions. Lionel, who was playing a game so deep I could not see the bottom. Was he testing me? Was he the anchor? And was this his way of telling me not to trust him? The masks were not just falling, they were multiplying. I drove back to the Pine Rest. The house was a trap. The motel was, for now, neutral ground. Lionel was sitting in the same chair as before, reading Evelyn's diary by the dim light of the bedside lamp. He looked up as I entered. He did not ask where I had been. "You find what you were looking for?" he asked. "More," I said. I was too wired to be tired. "Ronan's man, Callan, he tried the attic safe, failed. He's at a warehouse at the bay, shredding the North Lake files." Lionel's knuckles went white on the book's cover. "All of it?" "All of it. He's destroying the evidence. He's also taking my bait from Box 47C to the lawyers. They're meeting in Clearwater at 7 a.m. They are walking right into the next lock." I paused. Then I looked him dead in the eye. "Who is beneficiary number 2? He did not flinch. "I have told you." "Do not give me a riddle," I cut him off, my voice sharp. "I just walked into a warehouse full of federal crimes, and I have a target on my back. I got a message. It said the anchor will betray me. Is it Theo? Is it you?" He closed the diary, his face a mask of stone. When Evelyn set up this trust, she was not just protecting the money, she was testing the bloodline. The anchor is her final move. It is a fail-safe, a person who can stop everything or complete it. You do not ask who it is. Harper, You will know who it is when you are strong enough to not need them. It was the same answer, a non-answer. It was a wall. My suspicion solidified into a cold, hard knot. I could not trust him. I could not trust anyone. He stood up. I am going to get some air. He knew I needed space. He left the diary on the table. I stared at it after he left. Evelyn's game, Evelyn's riddles. I picked it up. My fingers traced the gilt edges. I opened it to the page he had been reading. It was damaged. The page was torn, a jagged, horizontal rip across the middle, but it had been repaired, fixed, clumsily, with old, yellowed cellophane tape, as if someone had torn it in a fit of rage, and then, in a moment of regret, tried to piece it back together. Most of the text was illegible, destroyed by the tear, but one line, just above the tape, was still clear, written in Evelyn's spidery, sharp handwriting. My only regret. The second person is one who knows how to keep silent. I read the words again. One who knows how to keep silent. My mind flashed back. The frantic, stammering voice on the phone. The man who was legally bound not to speak. The man whose records had been sealed. The man who had confirmed the 3:17 p.m. call with Evelyn. It was not Theo. It was not Lionel. It was the one person whose silence was not a choice, but a profession, a signature. Dr. Pierce. He was not just a witness. He was the anchor. I did not go back to the motel. I did not call Lionel. I knew, with the kind of absolute certainty that settles in your bones, that I was on my own. I drove. The town was asleep. The streets slick and black under the weak yellow streetlights. It was 5:30 in the morning. Callan was on his way to Clearwater, to deliver my digital trap. I was on my way to a quiet, brick building on a tree-lined street, the offices of Dr. Waylon Pierce. His lights were on. Of course they were. A man with that much fear does not sleep. I did not knock. I used the emergency exit card I keep in my wallet, a thin, stiff piece of plastic, and jimmied the front lock. It was a simple, old-fashioned lock. It popped open in 3 seconds. I found him in his private office. He was not signing charts. He was sitting in his expensive leather chair, in the dark, staring at a blank wall. A bottle of very old scotch sat on his desk, untouched. He did not jump when I entered. He just turned his head, his eyes hollowed out by lack of sleep. "I knew you would come," he whispered. His voice was the dry rasp of a man who had already accepted his own ruin. "Kestrel and Morrow. They've been calling. All night. They know I spoke to you. They are threatening to have my license reviewed." "They are," I said, my voice quiet. I did not sit. "They are threatening to destroy you because they know what you did." "I did nothing," he said, his voice rising, a note of hysteria creeping in. "I refused. I told Margot I would not sign that assessment. Lionel Harrington is as sharp as any man I have ever met. He is eccentric, perhaps, but he is not incompetent. I refused." "But they have a document," I pressed, stepping closer to his desk. "They have your signature. I have seen it." "It's a forgery," he cried, slamming his hand on the desk. A partial forgery. They hounded me. They threatened me. They sent a private investigator to follow my daughter. They found something from my past, a mistake, a prescription I should not have written 20 years ago." "So you signed," I said, the accusation flat and cold. "No," he said, standing up, his face ashen. "I still refused, but I compromised. I agreed to sign a general statement that Mr. Harrington was under significant emotional stress and experiencing temporary duress, a non-medical, non-binding opinion. Ronan Pike took that signature, and he copied it," I finished. "He copied your signature from that meaningless letter and affixed it to the fraudulent assessment he had drafted himself." "Yes," Pierce whispered, slumping back into his chair, a broken man. "Yes." I was silent for a long moment, letting the confession hang in the sterile air. But you knew they would, I said. It was not a question. He looked up, his eyes sharp for the first time. What? You knew they would betray you. You knew they would twist it. I reached into my bag. I did not pull out the diary. I pulled out a single, laminated photograph. It was a still, printed in high resolution, captured from the video call. My great-grandmother Evelyn, her eyes sharp and bright, looking directly at the camera. In her hands, she was holding a small, white digital clock. The numbers on it, in stark black, read 3:17 p.m. You recorded it, I said. The call, the real assessment, the one from 3:17 in the afternoon, the one Evelyn set up, you kept it. Dr. Pierce stared at the photograph. He looked at Evelyn's smiling, defiant face, and for the first time, the fear in his own eyes was replaced by a slow, burning anger, a flicker of life. Yes, he said, his voice hard. I kept it. I kept everything. She warned me. Evelyn warned me. She warned you about Margot, I said. She warned me about everyone. She said the money was a poison, that it made her own family weak, and she needed someone strong, someone who wasn't in the will, someone bound by a different oath. He turned to his computer. He typed a password. He unlocked a hidden partition. Margot forced my hand, he said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. She demanded I sign the assessment. I told her I would, but only after a full, private video teleconference with my patient to finalize my evaluation. She agreed. She thought I was just being difficult, but Evelyn and we had arranged it weeks before. A video file appeared on his screen. It was the call, Evelyn, alive, vibrant, and furious. I kept this, he said, the full 30-minute evaluation, my insurance, my proof of life, she called it, if they ever came for Lionel, if they ever used my name. You had the original, I said. I had more than that. He looked at me, his face grim. She made me promise. She put me in the will, the real will, the honor line. My heart stopped. You, I whispered, you are the anchor. I am beneficiary number 2, he confirmed, his voice heavy with the weight of the secret. I begged her not to. I am a doctor. I do not want the money. She laughed. She said, that is precisely why it must be you. Waylon. It was never about the money. It was never for me. It was a function, a legal position. As the anchor, I was given one power, and one power only. The power to act as the second signatory. The power to activate the trust. If I saw fraud, if I saw coercion, I had the legal standing to bypass the entire family, contact Seafarer, and trigger the conflict of interest clause myself. I sank into the chair opposite him. My mind was reeling. Evelyn had not just set a trap. She had armed a guardian. She had tied the entire, massive fortune, not to a family member who could be bought, but to the ethical code of a single, decent man. She had weaponized his conscience. I have been living in terror, Ms. Whitlow, he said, his voice shaking. For 2 years, waiting for this, when you called, when you said 3:17, I knew it was time. I knew they had finally done it. They're moving now, I said, my voice urgent. Ronan Pike is liquidating assets. I have access to the honor line, but it's not the full picture. I can see the account, but I can't see the movement. Not in real time. It is locked. Evelyn must have put a final firewall in place. She did, he said. A 2-person key, your access, as beneficiary number 1. Open the door. My access, as the anchor, unlocks the final ledger. She gave it to me during that call. A password, a failsafe. He opened a text file. It was a long, complex string of alphanumeric characters. This is the decryption key, but it's not just a key. He pointed to the video, which was still playing silently on his monitor. In the corner, a small green line was rhythmically beeping, an EKG. She was hooked up to a heart monitor during the call, he said. This password, it is tied to her heart rate. It only works if the bank's system can verify that the user also has access to this specific, encrypted EKG file from this exact call. Her vital signs are the final signature. He handed me a small, silver USB drive. The key, the EKG file, the original, unedited video of the entire call. He pushed it across the desk. This is it. This is everything I have. This is the truth. You are giving this to me? I asked, my hand closing over the drive. I am a doctor, Ms. Whitlow, he said, and for the first time, he smiled. It was a tired, sad smile, but it was real. I took an oath. It is time I honored it. Evelyn. She kept a straight back. It is time I did the same. I did not wait. I plugged the drive into my laptop. I accessed the Seafarer portal. I entered the password. I uploaded the EKG file. The system paused, and then the firewall dissolved. It was not a ledger. It was a waterfall. My screen lit up with transaction protocols, wire transfers, sell orders. It was happening now. Marrow Lake, I whispered, my eyes flying across the screen. It's a shadow fund. He's moving everything, all the shadow assets from the microfilm. He's dumping them into this fund, an unregistered entity in the Caymans. He's preparing to liquidate the entire portfolio. When? Lionel's voice said from my phone. I had dialed him without thinking. Tonight, I said, my voice grim. He has sell orders queued for the close of the European markets. He is cashing out. By midnight tonight, the shadow portfolio will be gone. He will have hundreds of millions in untraceable cash, and we will be left holding an empty bag. Then we move. Lionel's voice was sharp. The shareholders, they must be warned. I am calling the emergency meeting. Town hall, noon. It's public. The press can be there. They're ready for that, I said, my mind racing. A shareholder meeting is just noise. They know it. They have another move. They're not just trying to stop you, grandfather. They're coming for me. What did you find out? I found the anchor. It's Pierce. He's clean. He's on our side. And he just gave me the final key. Before Lionel could respond, my phone buzzed with an incoming call. Theo, I put Lionel on hold. Harper? Theo's voice was a panicked whisper. I got your message. I saw the video. The shredder. Oh my God. Harper, that's a federal crime. Yes, it is, I said. And you are now an accessory to it unless you make a choice. Ronan is liquidating everything tonight. There is no more maybe. There is no more later. The house is on fire. You are either in, or you are on the list of defendants. There was a long, agonizing silence. I heard him take a single, shuddering breath. The sound of a man watching his entire, comfortable life burn to the ground. What? What do you need me to do? He whispered. My grandfather is calling a shareholder meeting. Town hall, 12 noon. I need you there. I need you to stand up, and I need you to tell them what you told me. That Ronan Pike coerced you, that you saw the evidence of the fraud, that you are calling for his immediate removal. He'll destroy me, he whimpered. He is destroying all of us. This is your only chance to be on the right side of the wreckage. Choose. Okay, he said, his voice barely audible. Okay, I'll be there. Noon. He hung up. I clicked back to Lionel. Theo is in. He'll back your play at the meeting. Good, Lionel said. Then it is set. Town hall, noon. You go to the town hall, I said. You handle the shareholders. You are the public face. I have a different fire to fight. Harper? Just then, the glass door to Dr. Pierce's clinic chimed. A man in a cheap suit, holding a briefcase, walked in. He looked at me. Harper L. Whitlow? He asked, his voice bored. Yes, I said. He handed me a thick envelope. You have been served. I did not have to open it. I knew what it was. Margot's countermove, I said into the phone. She's not just trying to take guardianship of you, grandfather. She has filed an emergency petition for a medical guardianship over me. I ripped open the envelope. The summons was stark. In re, the guardianship of Harper L. Whitlow. The hearing was set for today. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9:15 a.m. The hearing is at 11 a.m., I said, my voice dangerously calm. 1 hour before your shareholder meeting, she is trying to have me declared legally incompetent before I can testify. She is trying to take me off the board. I will come with you, Lionel said. No, I said, cutting him off. You will not. This is a two-front war. They know this. They are trying to split our forces. If you come to the courthouse, you miss the shareholder meeting, the press leaves, the story dies, and Ronan wins. If I go to the meeting, I default on the summons, and the judge grants the guardianship. We both lose. We have to split. Harper, you cannot go into a competency hearing alone. I am not going in to fight a competency hearing, I said, my gaze hardening. I am going in to win one. I hung up. I looked at Dr. Pierce, who was staring at the summons in my hand, his face white. She's insane, he whispered. She's desperate, I said, and she's about to be sloppy. I walked out of his office, the silver USB drive feeling like a weapon in my pocket. I walked past the process server, who was already on his phone, likely reporting his success. I walked out into the bright, cold morning. The courthouse was 10 blocks away. I walked. It cleared my head. As I approached the marble steps, I saw him, Callan. He was not on his way to Clearwater. He was here, waiting for me. The 7 a.m. meeting with the lawyers was a lie. This was the real ambush. He smiled, a reptilian crack in his blunt face. He stepped in front of me, blocking my path to the door. He was holding an envelope, thicker than the summons. Ms. Whitlow, he said, his voice a low, pleasant rumble. He held out the envelope. This is for you, from Mr. I and your aunt. It's a settlement offer, generous. I am not interested in a settlement, I said, moving to step around him. He moved with me, blocking me again. You should be, he said, his smile widening. It's very simple. You sign the papers inside. You agree to the evaluation. You agree that you are unwell. In exchange, they will be very, very generous. A thank you for your cooperation. He pushed the envelope toward my chest. Sign it. Go inside. Agree with the judge. It will all be over. When you are done signing, you will disappear. Right off the family books. A clean break. A new life. Far away from here. His eyes were dead. This was not an offer. It was a threat. Disappear. I looked at the envelope. I looked at his smug, confident face. I smiled. No, thank you. Callan, I said, pushing the envelope back against his chest. I have a better offer. You are going to be on the front page. His smile faltered. What? The front page, I said, stepping past him, my heels clicking on the marble. Right in the crime section. You should really fix that camera at the warehouse. The red light is very distracting. Callan's face went slack. The smug confidence replaced by a flicker of pure, animal panic. I did not give him a second look. I pushed through the heavy oak doors of the Franklin County Courthouse, my heels striking the marble floor like gavels. The hearing was not in a main courtroom, but in a small, suffocating chamber reserved for probate and family matters. It was designed to be intimate, a place for quiet, sad decisions. Margot had chosen it specifically for that reason. It was a room meant for burials. She was already there, seated at a plaintiff's table, dressed in a somber navy suit, the very picture of pained, responsible matriarchy. Kestrel, her lawyer, sat beside her, his briefcase open, a mountain of paper already stacked neatly on his desk. The judge, a woman named Alvarez, looked tired. She had a face that had seen every flavor of family betrayal, and she was clearly not happy about this emergency hearing. We are here, Judge Alvarez began, her voice flat, on the emergency petition for medical guardianship, in re. Harper L. Whitlow, Mr. Kestrel, you filed. The burden of proof is yours. Proceed. Thank you, Your Honor, Kestrel said, rising smoothly. He was a creature of these rooms. We are here today on a matter of extreme urgency and great sadness. The Harrington family, my clients, seek only to protect their niece, Ms. Harper Whitlow, from herself. He launched into the narrative, the one they had so carefully crafted. He spoke of my erratic behavior, my disappearance with my grandfather, my history of professional instability. Referencing the Northlake incident, he painted a picture of a brilliant but broken mind, a woman obsessed with delusional financial conspiracies. And now, Your Honor, he said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. We have this. He lifted a thick bound document, a full psychological profile, compiled by experts, including the family's longtime physician, Dr. Waylon Pierce. The conclusion is undeniable. Ms. Whitlow is suffering from paranoid ideation and is a danger to herself and to the stability of her family. She requires immediate, compassionate care. We are asking the court to grant this temporary guardianship to her aunt, Ms. Margot Harrington, so she can get the help she so desperately needs. He handed the document, the forged document, to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. Judge Alvarez frowned as she flipped through it. This is comprehensive and signed by Dr. Pierce. She looked at me, her expression a mix of pity and impatience. Ms. Whitlow, you are here without counsel. Do you have anything to say in your defense? I do, Your Honor, I said, rising. My voice did not shake. It was not the voice of a victim. It was the voice of a risk analyst. I am not here without counsel. I am here with facts. Mr. Kestrel's document is a compelling piece of fiction, but it has one critical flaw. It is a fraud. Kestrel shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. This is exactly the kind of slanderous, unhinged accusation. Then you will not object, I cut him off. To me presenting evidence that proves my hinges are perfectly intact? Evidence that Mr. Kestrel, Ms. Harrington, and their associate Ronan Pike have actively conspired to suppress? The judge held up a hand. Sit down. Mr. Kestrel, I will allow it, but be brief. Ms. Whitlow. Thank you, Your Honor. I did not look at the papers. I looked at the judge. Mr. Kestrel claims my delusions involve fabricated financial conspiracies. He claims I am paranoid. My paranoia is simply pattern recognition, and it is a trait I inherited. I pulled the silver USB drive from my pocket. I would like to play a video. It is 30 minutes long, but I only need the court to see the first two. It is a recording of a video teleconference. The timestamp is 3:17 p.m., 3 weeks ago. It is the actual medical evaluation that Mr. Kestrel's forged document is based on. Kestrel went pale. Objection! Foundation! Provenance! We have no idea what this is. It is a business record, Your Honor, I said smoothly, kept by Dr. Waylon Pierce, and he is right here to authenticate it. The doors at the back of the chamber opened. Dr. Pierce walked in, holding a notarized affidavit in his trembling hand. He looked terrified, but he looked determined. The anchor was holding. Dr. Pierce? The judge said, her eyes widening. Your Honor, Pierce said, his voice shaky but clear. I am here to attest that the psychological profile submitted by Mr. Kestrel is a forgery. My signature was taken from a separate, unrelated document and affixed to it without my knowledge or consent. This video, he pointed to my drive, is the true record of my last formal evaluation of my patient, Evelyn Harrington. The name landed like a grenade. Evelyn Harrington? Margot whispered, her mask of concern finally cracking. She's dead. She was very much alive during this call, Your Honor, I said, sliding the drive into the court's presentation laptop. She scheduled this call specifically to prove her own lucidity as she finalized the terms of a trust Ms. Harrington and Mr. Pike are currently trying to illegally drain. The video flickered to life on the monitors. There was Evelyn, sharp as glass, holding the digital clock showing 3:17. "State your name and the date, please. Evelyn." Dr. Pierce's voice said. Evelyn smiled. "Waylon, stop being so formal. It's Evelyn Harrington. It is Tuesday, and I am, as you know, of perfectly sound mind. Sounder than that nest of vipers I call a family." She then proceeded to recite a complex poem from memory, before launching into a razor-sharp 10-minute analysis of the commodities market. "And now," Evelyn said on the recording, "for the business at hand, I am confirming with you, my witness and my anchor, the 3 conditions of the Honor Line Trust. 1. The trust activates upon my granddaughter Harper's 32nd birthday. 2. It transfers full discretionary control to her in the event of proven financial malfeasance by the family fund manager. 3. You, Dr. Pierce, as beneficiary number 2, are the fail-safe. Your sole duty is to protect this trust and provide this evidence if you see that malfeasance come to pass." The video ended. The courtroom was silent. Margot was staring at the screen, her face a mask of disbelief. Kestrel was shuffling his papers, his professional calm completely shattered. "Your Honor," I said, turning back to the judge, "the delusional financial conspiracy Mr. Kestrel mentioned, it is not a delusion. It is a crime in progress." I pulled up the next file, the Seafarer Bank portal, the real-time transaction ledger. These are the statements for the Honor Line Trust, to which I was granted full access this morning, and these, I highlighted a series of wire transfers, are the irregular transfers authorized by Ronan Pike, moving hundreds of millions of dollars from protected trust accounts into an unregistered private shadow fund in the Cayman Islands called Marrow Lake. He is liquidating the family's shadow portfolio. This is not management. This is theft. This is the malfeasance Evelyn warned about. "Objection!" Kestrel roared, finally finding his voice. This is nonsense. Hearsay. These are private financial documents. They are privileged. They were obtained illegally. She hacked the bank." "I did not," I said calmly. I looked at the door. "The evidence was provided to me legally, Your Honor." "By whom?" the judge demanded. "By beneficiary number 2, I said, "as stipulated in the trust charter Evelyn Harrington just outlined. The anchor, Dr. Waylon Pierce." Pierce stepped forward and handed his affidavit to the bailiff. "It is all in there, Your Honor, the original, unaltered medical reports for both Lionel and Evelyn Harrington, my sworn testimony that I was coerced and my signature forged, and my official, legal authorization as beneficiary number 2, granting Ms. Whitlow access to the Seafarer accounts to stop the fraud I was witnessing. I am the one who gave her the final key." Judge Alvarez read the affidavit. Her face, once tired, was now furious. She looked at Kestrel. She looked at Margot. Her voice dropped to a lethal, controlled calm. "Mr. Kestrel," she said, "you have, in my courtroom, presented a forged medical document and based your entire petition on what appears to be a criminal conspiracy to defraud a trust and silence a whistleblower. You are treading on ice so thin it has already cracked." She looked at me. "Ms. Whitlow, this court is not the proper venue for a financial crimes case, but I am certainly not going to grant a guardianship petition that appears to be an instrument of that crime." She took a deep, steadying breath. "The petition for guardianship is suspended, indefinitely, and the entirety of this file, Dr. Pierce's affidavit, this video, and these bank statements, will be immediately referred to the District Attorney's Office for criminal investigation into Ms. Harrington and the firm of Kestrel and Morrow." Kestrel looked as if he had been shot. Margot made a small, choking sound. "One last thing, Your Honor," I said, pressing my advantage. "The theft is happening now. Mr. Pike is liquidating the Marrow Lake Fund today. I need to stop it. This court has jurisdiction over the petitioner, Ms. Harrington," the judge said, a predatory glint in her eye. "But this fund is in the Caymans. But the orders for liquidation are coming from Mr. Pike's office, right here in Franklin County," I countered. "I am petitioning for an emergency temporary restraining order. a 48-hour freeze on all transactions associated with the Marrow Lake Fund, pending the DA's investigation. The judge looked at Kestrel. Mr. Kestrel? Any reason I should not grant this, given the evidence of massive active fraud? Kestrel could not speak. He just shook his head, his career dissolving in front of his eyes. The judge lifted her gavel. The motion is granted. Bang. A temporary restraining order is issued, effective immediately, freezing all assets and transactions associated with Marrow Lake Holdings for 48 hours. Bang. This hearing is adjourned. Margot's lawyer was, in fact, pale. He was sheet white. I nodded to Dr. Pierce, who looked as if he might faint from relief. I gathered my drive and walked to the bailiff, who handed me the stamped, signed, and sealed restraining order, the most beautiful piece of paper I had ever seen. I walked out of the chamber. My victory lasted 3 seconds. Callan was in the hallway. The panic was gone, replaced by a cold, blunt rage. He saw the paper in my hand. "That's not yours," he growled, and he lunged. He was not trying to be subtle. He was trying to take the order by force. He was fast, but the court officer at the door was faster. The bailiff, a man built like a refrigerator, had his arm in a joint lock before Callan's fingers even brushed the paper. "You are in a courthouse, son," the bailiff hissed. "Assaulting an officer of the court is not a good look." He slammed Callan against the marble wall, and I did not look back. I was out the courthouse doors, running. I pulled out my phone. I hit the secure channel. I took a photo of the stamped order and sent it, encrypted. 1 copy to Lionel, 1 copy to Theo. I checked the time, 11:40 a.m. 20 minutes. The town hall was 8 blocks away. I ran. I did not care who saw me. I ran past the shocked look on the process server's face. I ran past Callan, who was now in handcuffs, being escorted back inside. I ran, the cold Maine air burning my lungs, the sealed order clutched in my hand. I burst through the doors of the Brackenridge Town Hall at 11:58. The main hall was packed. It was not just shareholders. It was the press, cameras rolling. The paparazzi from the gate were there. The Wall Street Journal was there. Margot's media trouble had just become her worst nightmare. At the front, on a raised dais, my grandfather was standing at a podium. Ronan Pike was at a table to his right, looking smug. Theo was in the front row, looking like he was about to throw up. "And so," Lionel's voice boomed across the room, amplified by the microphone, "I am here to tell you that this family, the Harrington family, does not sell its honor to buy its silence." Ronan Pike stood up, grabbing a second microphone. "Lionel, that's enough. You are in breach of your fiduciary duties. You are in violation of multiple non-disclosure agreements." "Actually, he's not," I said. My voice, breathless but clear, cut through the room. The cameras all swiveled. The shareholders turned. I walked down the central aisle, my heels clicking, my face set. Ronan Pike froze. His smugness evaporated. He looked at me as if he had just seen a ghost. I did not stop until I was standing at the foot of the dais. I held up the sealed, stamped court order so the cameras could see it. "Non-disclosure agreements do not cover financial crimes. Ronan," I said. "And as of 11:31 this morning, this court agrees with me." The cameras turned as one. The murmuring of the shareholders died, replaced by a sharp, collective intake of breath. Ronan Pike's face, which had been a mask of smug control, collapsed. He saw the stamped restraining order. He saw the look in my eyes. He saw the end. "Mr. Pike is correct," I said, my voice carrying across the packed hall, my lungs still burning from the run. "This is about non-disclosure agreements, and it is about fiduciary duty. It is about the crimes he committed, believing those agreements would hide him." I did not wait for an invitation. I walked up the side steps to the dais, plugged my laptop into the hall's projector, and brought down the lights. The first image that flashed onto the massive screen behind my grandfather was not a photograph. It was a diagram. My diagram. This, I said, my voice becoming the cold, flat tone of an analyst, is the crime. I used my laser pointer. It begins here, Northlake Trust Holdings. The assets Ronan Pike was supposed to be managing, but they do not stay there. They move. Here, the red dot landed on a box. To a shell company. Sideco. This is where he washed the assets, claiming paper losses while transferring the real value. From there, I click to the next slide. It moves again to Marrow Lake Holdings, the unregistered fund in the Caymans, and finally, here, the dot landed on a string of numbers. A private, untaxed account. This is not management. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a 5-year, multi-hundred-million-dollar siphon. This is grand larceny, plain and simple. A roar went up from the shareholders. Ronan was speechless. "This is fantasy," he finally shouted, his voice cracking. "It's slander. She has no proof." "My proof," I said, clicking to the next slide, "is not mine. It is hers." The screen changed. It was the high-resolution image of the microfilm. Evelyn Harrington's sharp, clear handwriting. I zoomed in on the notation in the margin, the one I had found in the archive. "This is a note from my great-grandmother, Evelyn Harrington," I said, my voice softening just a fraction. "It is the trigger for the side letter Mr. Pike and his lawyers tried so hard to neutralize. It activates a temporary line of succession. It gives control to the granddaughter who keeps her back straight. She wrote that clause because she knew this day would come. She knew he—" I pointed the laser at Ronan. "Would come?" "This is baseless," Ronan yelled, but his voice was thin. "A note, a senile woman's scribble." "She was not senile," a voice said, a new voice. It was Theo. He was standing in the front row, his face pale, but his voice, though shaking, was clear. The cameras swiveled to him. "She was not senile," he repeated, louder. And I am not a coward, not anymore." He walked, unsteady, toward the dais. "My name is Theo Harrington. I am a proxy holder, and I have been complicit. I was coerced by Ronan Pike." "Theo, sit down." Margot, who had just arrived, pushed through the back door, her face a mask of white rage. She had clearly run from the courthouse. "You are ill. He is not well." "I am perfectly well, Margot," Theo said, his voice finding strength. "I was financially blackmailed by Mr. Pike. He forced me to sign documents. He forced me to stay silent. But I did not stay stupid." He pulled a small digital recorder from his pocket. This is an audio recording. From 6 months ago, it is a conversation between myself and Mr. Pike about how to manage my brother's decline." He pressed play. The room went utterly silent. Ronan's voice filled the air. It was not the smooth, public voice. It was cold, clinical, and cruel. "It does not matter if he is lucid," Ronan's voice echoed. "We just need the paperwork to say he is not. We draft the assessment, we get Pierce to sign it, or we find a doctor who will. We package his decline. We use Harper's instability as the trigger. We lock them both out. By the time anyone figures it out, the transfer will be complete." The recording clicked off. A shareholder in the third row, an elderly woman, stood up. "My God," she whispered. Ronan looked like he had been hollowed out. Margot, however, was a cornered animal. "Lies!" she shrieked, rushing the stage. "All of it! This is a coup! Look at him!" She pointed a trembling finger at my grandfather, who had remained silent, watching. "He is senile. He has not said a word. He is a puppet. And this bitch," she spat the word at me, "is pulling his strings. He is not competent to run this company." "That is an interesting accusation, Ms. Harrington," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "You are claiming my grandfather, Lionel Harrington, is mentally unfit for duty?" Yes, I am. He is a vegetable." "Then I suppose," I said, "that you did not see the Brackenridge Gazette this morning, or the 20-minute live off-the-cuff interview he gave on the courthouse steps not 40 minutes ago regarding the complex future of the commodities market. Would the press like to ask him a question now, to verify his senility? A dozen reporters shouted at once. Mr. Harrington, what is your response to the Marrow Lake Fund? Lionel stepped to the podium. He did not look at Ronan. He looked at the camera. Marrow Lake is a boil that needed lancing. It is a symptom of a sickness. The belief that loyalty can be bought. As of today, that belief is bankrupt. His voice was a steel girder, sharp, clear, and utterly in command. But do not take my word for it, I said, pulling a folded document from my pocket. I, too, am concerned with medical accuracy. This is a full, updated certification of capacity for Lionel Harrington. It declares him to be, and I quote, of superior cognitive function and sound mind. It was signed at 8 a.m. this morning by Dr. Waylon Pierce, the real one, not the forgery Ronan has been circulating. The room erupted. Furthermore, I shouted over the noise, it does not matter, because the person you are really in business with right now is me. A man in a dark, conservative suit, who had been standing near the entrance, walked forward. This is correct. The cameras found him. I am Michael Hale, senior counsel for Seafarer Bank, he said, his voice dry and precise. Pursuant to the charter of the Honor Line Trust, established 1958, and the activation of the Conflict of Interest Clause, as authenticated by Beneficiary Number 2, all voting rights and temporary discretionary control of the Harrington Trust and all its subsidiaries have been legally transferred. As of 9 a.m. this morning, full proxy control rests with the designated successor, Ms. Harper Whitlow. The final nail? It was done. Ronan Pike knew it. He was no longer looking at me. He was looking at the exit. I stepped to the podium, my grandfather stepping back to stand beside me. As the acting head of the Harrington Trust, I announced, my voice ringing with an authority I had not known I possessed. I am exercising my full proxy rights. I call for an immediate vote of no confidence in the family fund manager, Ronan Pike, and his immediate removal, for cause. You cannot, a shareholder shouted. You do not have the votes. Margot Harrington controls 30%. She did, I said, but the honor line supersedes her. My vote now counts for 51%. Not just yours, the elderly woman in the third row said. She stood up. She was holding a pale blue proxy card. Evelyn Harrington gave me 5%. I vote yes. Another man stood. I vote yes. A woman in the back. Yes. Across the room, a dozen people stood. The small shareholders, the ones Evelyn had secretly empowered. Her quiet army, waiting for this very day. The people she had trusted more than her own blood. The vote was not just a majority, it was a landslide. Ronan Pike, I said, you are removed, effective immediately. Security, please escort this man out. 2 uniformed civil officers, who had been standing at the back, began to move forward, but they were not the only ones. A plainclothes officer, the same one who had detained Callan, walked up to him at the side of the stage, where he had been standing, watching. Mr. Callan, you are being detained. We found your phone. It is currently uploading the entire Kestrel and Morrow client network to a private, encrypted server. We believe it is evidence in an ongoing criminal investigation. Callan's face went white. My trap. It had worked. The same officer then turned, walking past Ronan, and approached Margot. He handed her a folded piece of paper. Ms. Margot Harrington, you are served. This is a subpoena to appear before a federal grand jury regarding the criminal investigation into Marrow Lake Holdings, North Lake, and Kestrel and Morrow. This was the end. The final layer. Ronan saw it. He saw Margot get the summons. He saw Callan being cuffed. He saw the shareholders staring at him with pure hatred. He did not walk. He ran. He bolted from the dais, pushing past a reporter, scrambling for the main exit. He was fast, fueled by raw panic. He was almost at the door. And then he went down, hard. He had not seen the 2 old leather suitcases my grandfather had placed by the door when he first walked in. He tripped over the worn brass corner of the first one, his legs flying out from under him. He hit the marble floor with a sickening crack, his expensive suit skidding, his face a mask of shocked pain. The officers were on him in a second. The cameras, which had followed his flight, were now all trained on the 2 objects that had stopped him, the suitcases. My grandfather, Lionel Harrington, walked calmly through the chaos. He walked past the officers handcuffing Ronan. He walked past his sister, Margot, who was staring at the summons as if it were a snake. He stopped at the suitcases. He knelt. In front of the flashing cameras of the Wall Street Journal, he clicked open the brass latches on the first suitcase, the one he had carried from the SUV. It was not filled with clothes. It was filled with books, dozens of them. The original, leather-bound diaries of Evelyn Harrington. "Mr. Harrington, what are those?" a reporter shouted. Lionel looked up, his eyes finding mine. "The truth," he said. "The originals, not the forgeries, not the copies. The originals, my mother's voice." He reached into the second suitcase and pulled out a single, thick vellum envelope. Not the red one he had shown Margot. This one was cream-colored, sealed with blue wax. He did not open it. He stood up, walked over to me, and handed it to me. My name was on it, Harper. My hands trembled as I broke Evelyn's seal. I pulled out the letter. I read it, my eyes blurring. "My dearest Harper, if you are reading this, the house is on fire. Do not be sad. Houses are made to be rebuilt. I have left you the tools. Your grandfather has the maps. But you, my girl, you have the iron. I knew it the day you were born. Do not let them bend you. Keep your back straight, and you will keep the house straight. The honor line is not a fortune. It is a promise. Hold the line. Your loving, Evelyn." I looked up from the letter, my vision clearing. I looked at my grandfather. The chaos in the room had faded to a low hum. It was just the 2 of us. He nodded, a slow, profound gesture, a look of immense sadness, but also of profound relief, passed over his features. "It is time," he said, his voice just for me, but it carried in the sudden silence of the room. "Now you must tell them why we really left." The camera zoomed in. The reporters held their breath. Why we really left? We had left to stop this. What else was there? My grandfather looked at the room, at the broken pieces of his family, and his eyes were full of a sorrow I did not understand. A final secret, hanging in the air, heavy and dark as a thundercloud. The hush in the town hall was absolute. It was not just silence. It was a vacuum, waiting for the final, terrible truth. All eyes were on my grandfather. Tell them why we really left. He did not. He simply looked at me, his gaze heavy. He was the protector, but I was the executor. This final truth was mine to deliver. I stepped back to the podium, the stamped court order in one hand, Evelyn's letter in the other. The camera zoomed in. My grandfather, I began, my voice clear and steady, did not just leave his 80th birthday party to stop Mr. Pike. He did not leave to save the company. He left because he was protecting a secret my great-grandmother, Evelyn Harrington, put in place to protect this family from itself. I looked at Margot. She was standing near the door, flanked by the officers, her face a mask of pale, confused rage. She did not understand. She still thought this was about money. "For 30 years, I said. "This family has been operating on a lie. Evelyn knew it, and now, so do we." I held up a different document, one Lionel had pulled from the second suitcase and handed to me as I walked onto the dais. It was another affidavit, sealed with the same blue wax. "This is Evelyn Harrington's final, notarized confession, entrusted to my grandfather. It explains her entire strategy. It explains the honor line. It confirms," I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle, "that my Aunt Margot is not my grandfather's biological daughter. She was the daughter of his father's closest friend, adopted in secret after her parents' death, and raised as a Harrington to protect the family name. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Margot, for the first time in her life, looked small. She stumbled back, shaking her head. No, that's a lie. It's a lie. It is the truth, Lionel's voice boomed, sharp as a judgment. A truth I kept, to honor my father's wish, a truth you have now forced into the light. This, I said, raising my voice, is why the trust was split. Evelyn knew. She knew Margot had no biological claim to the Harrington bloodline, so she created two inheritances, the public estate, which she left to the family, and the honor line, a separate dominant trust, which she tied, not to a name, but to a bloodline that Margot could never, ever touch. I looked at the cameras, at the shareholders. This is the meaning of the carving in the attic. HLLH. It was not a riddle, it was a lock, a symmetrical, two-part authentication key. Harper L. Whitlow, Lionel H. Harrington, two direct descendants of the true bloodline, required to sign in unison to unlock the real assets, the assets Margot and Ronan were trying to find, but never could. The room was buzzing. Margot looked utterly destroyed. And so, I said, as the sole, verified controller of the Honor Line Trust, I am making my first and final decision. I did not look at the ruin of my family. I looked at the press. The Honor Line Trust will not be a private fortune. It is not my inheritance. It is a tool, effective immediately. The trust's controlling shares are being transferred to a new entity, the Honor Line Community Foundation. Its entire purpose will be to fund education, housing, and infrastructure projects for the town of Brackenridge. The shareholders, the townspeople, looked stunned. Then, one by one, they began to clap. I continued, will serve as its independent, unpaid supervisor. My grandfather, Lionel Harrington, will serve as its honorary advisor. The Harrington money will no longer be used to build walls. It will be used to build this town. I turned my gaze to Theo, who was standing by his chair, weeping silently. My uncle, Theo Harrington, I said, my voice softening. His cooperation, while late, was critical. He will retain his minority shares, under one binding condition, his full, sworn, and continuing cooperation with the federal investigation. His dividends, by his own agreement, will be redirected to establish the Harrington Vocational Scholarship Fund to give the young people of this town a trade and a chance. Theo nodded, a gesture of profound, heartbreaking relief. His was a life sentence, not a prison one. Dr. Waylon Pierce has already submitted his complete, unredacted files, including the video evidence of Evelyn Harrington's lucidity, to the United States Attorney's Office. A federal grand jury investigation is officially open into the actions of Ronan Pike, Margot Harrington, and the law firm of Kestrel and Morrow. A reporter from the Journal shouted, Ms. Whitlow, what about Northlake Trust? Will you sell your shares? Absolutely not, I said. I have already formally rejected their buyout offer. Instead, I am announcing a full, independent forensic audit of all Harrington-related activities and our relationship with Northlake, going back 10 years. We will find every dollar Ronan Pike stole, and we will take it back. The room was electric, a whirlwind of noise and cameras. Lionel stepped forward, his hand raised. The room, miraculously, fell silent again. He stood at the podium, a man who had just seen his sister arrested and his legacy reborn. We do not pay back blood with blood, he said, his voice thick with emotion, but steady as iron. We do not answer theft with spite. We restore a family name with the truth. One last thing, I said. I pointed to the back of the hall, where a court officer was wheeling in a final piece of evidence. It was the safe, the small, black mechanical safe from the attic, still sealed. Mr. Pike's associate, Callan, tried to break into this. He failed. He thought he was looking for documents. He thought he was looking for a key. I walked over to it as the cameras rushed in. The officer nodded. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the old, rusty iron key, the one I had grabbed from behind the painting. "This key," I said, "was not for box 47C. It was for this." I inserted the key into the lock. The room was so quiet, I could hear the tumblers move. I turned it. With a heavy mechanical thunk, the lock disengaged. I pulled the heavy steel door open. "What's in it?" a reporter whispered. I reached inside. I pulled out a single, leather-bound document. "The original, wet ink, notarized charter for the Honor Line Trust," I announced. "Signed by Evelyn Harrington, dated 1958, the true will, the true word." The hall exploded. It was not just shouting, it was applause. Shareholders, reporters, townspeople, they were clapping. Ronan Pike was being led out in handcuffs. Margot was being escorted by an officer, her face gray and empty. It was over. I looked at my grandfather. He nodded, his eyes shining. I took his arm. Ms. Whitlow, a comment. How does it feel?" I turned to the nearest camera, my voice clear. "We will be holding a full press conference tomorrow with the new board of the Honor Line Foundation. Today is for family." We walked down the aisle. The rain had stopped. Through the high windows of the town hall, I could see the sun breaking through the clouds, a clean, bright, cold light. We walked out the front doors, past the throng of cameras. I was pulling one of the old leather suitcases. My grandfather was pulling the other. It was the same image from the beginning, but everything had changed. We were not running. We were walking, free. On the steps, with the crowd behind us, he leaned over to me. His voice was a quiet, private rumble, just for me. "Do you know why I really said we're leaving?" he asked. I looked at him, my hand over his on the suitcase handle. He smiled, a true warm smile that reached his eyes. "Because this place," he said, "this whole town, needed to see your back was straight when you finally returned." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. A final, secure alert from Seafarer Bank. "Congratulations, Ms. Whitlow. With the Honor Line fully activated and the primary audit complete, a final dormant subtrust has been unlocked. Fund name, Attic Light. The co-beneficiary is listed as the Brackenridge Children's Fund." My breath caught. I stopped walking. A fund, a small, anonymous charity I had set up 5 years ago with my first significant bonus. A place to put my anger, to help kids who, like me, felt trapped, abandoned, and left in the dark. Evelyn. She had known. She had seen everything. She had tied her final secret gift to my first one. I looked up from my phone. My grandfather was watching me, a knowing, proud look in his eyes. The cameras flashed, capturing the moment. 2 figures, 2 generations, pulling old luggage, walking into the new, clean light. I smiled. The honor line was straight, and the story was, finally, over. It had ended exactly where it was always supposed to end, in the light. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Please let us know what you think, and be sure to comment where you're listening from. We love to see how far these stories travel. Subscribe to Lila Revenge Stories, like this video, and give us some extra support by hitting that hype button so this story can be heard by more people.